Pat Dooris. Welcome to The Story. We're starting today in Vancouver at Fort Vancouver for a special reason. The head of the National Park Service was here. It's a place he's very familiar with because he grew up in Umatilla. He's also the first Native American to run the National Park Service.
Well, Nich Maitsky, everyone. Good morning, my friends and relatives. I'm so happy.
Chuck Sams began his news conference with a greeting in his tribal language.
My own roots are here as a Cayuse and Walla Walla man.
Something no other director of the National Park Service has ever been able to do. He's visiting Fort Vancouver to highlight a renovation project on one of the barracks here with the surprisingly sterile name of Building 993.
There are a couple of things we really want to focus on.
The building has stood since 1907 and housed countless soldiers through the years until it was closed in 2012.
I have to say, as a former service member, it's exciting to know the building will be reused again. I lived in barracks myself in the very same setup, and I can imagine the bunks, the rifles stacked in the middle.
Now, $15 million from the Great Outdoors Act will modernize it and allow the Park Service to rent it out as office space. The Great Outdoors Act funnels nearly $2 billion a year for 5 years to the Park Service. The money comes from lease payments to the federal government from energy companies, drilling on federal lands, and will help national parks do maintenance work that's been put off for years.
I like it when a building can come to reuse and have...
This is Chuck Sams' first official visit back to Vancouver and Oregon in his new position, but he does have deep ties here, beginning with his birth at Good Samaritan Hospital in Portland and a childhood spent on the Umatilla Reservation.
I'm Cayuse and Walla Walla, an enrolled member of the Confederated Tribes Umatilla Indian Reservation, but I also have blood ties to the Kokopah in southwest Arizona on my mother's side, and on my father's side, his mother was Yankton Sioux from Fort Peck, Montana. On my non-Indian side, I can go back 9 generations to Joseph LaRocque, who came here in 1812, 1813 on the SS Beaver out to Fort Astoria and made his way inland and worked for both the American Fur Trade Company and the Hudson Bay Company. Matter of fact, stationed right here at Fort Vancouver.
Is it odd to be a Native American standing on a fort that was the beginning of Europeans taking over the native land?
I think that's part of being able to tell the diverse story of America. We have to be able to embrace the good and the controversial and be able to tell that story more fully. If not, then we're not really celebrating the diversity of who we are as Americans. Over the years, I've been to the fort many, many times for different celebrations, for the reconciliation between the fort and the Nez Perce tribe. I've been here for Memorial Day weekends. And as a veteran, I don't necessarily see that conflict. Among my own people, under Article 2 of the Treaty of 1855, we allied ourselves with the United States government. The treaty allowed for the President of the United States to arm us with guns and ammunition. That's a recognition that not only as us as a tribal sovereign, but also to recognize that we are allied with the United States.
Sams served in the Navy as an aviation intelligence officer. He's also worked in tribal and state governments and in the nonprofit world in natural resources and conservation. Now, since last December, he's the director of the National Park Service, in charge of an agency with 20,000 employees and 423 national parks all over the country. It's given him an up-close look at the warming climate.
National parks were ground zero. We've seen a lot of that change happening. Up at Denali, we saw as the glaciers started to melt their way back and the tundra started to melt itself off, and we've had land slough off. Down in the Everglades, we've seen the rise of salt water coming in and affecting the massive grasslands down there. And so we have some of the best scientists on the National Park Service staff. If we can combine their work along with the traditional ecological knowledge of the tribes throughout the United States, we can find some resiliency and planning that will help us combat the climate crisis.
He says the parks are also in danger of being overloved by too many people. His team is looking at creating timed entry slots for visitors or using electric vehicles in the parks or some combination of that and more. All of it guided by his upbringing and Native American approach to life.
I think I bring a unique approach because I believe I am from the landscape. My own creation story tells me that my skin is from the hide of elk, my vision is from the eagle, my hearing is from the owl, that the roots and berries provided my nervous system, and that's how I was created as a human being. So that gives a symbiotic relationship. The National Park Service and their mission is all about protection, preserving, and enhancing our natural resources and our cultural resources together so that we can share that for not only this generation, but several generations down the road. So I think bringing my own personal background into an organization and a bureau that is so dedicated to that is really met my life's mission.
Yeah, it's got to feel good to be there.
It does. It feels great to be part.
Chuck Sams had to move back to Virginia for his new job. He told me he enjoys living there, but really, there's no place like the Northwest.